Time to call to order the regular meeting of McAlester City Council, Tuesday, April 14th. We are getting started a little bit late. We had some technical difficulties. If we do have further technical difficulties, if they last 30 minutes or more,
This conference will now be recorded.
we will adjourn and reconvene tomorrow at 5:30. With that, Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith?
Here.
Stevens?
Here.
Cox?
Here.
Brown?
Here.
Harrison?
Here.
Pritchard? Councilman Pritchard?
Here.
Mayor?
Here, we do have a quorum. Councilman Harrison, would you lead us in the pledge and invocation,
Sure.
please?
All right. Let us please stand. We'll pray first. Our Heavenly Father, we come once again in the name of Jesus, thanking you for your goodness, your mercy, and your love. Father, we ask you to just continue giving us divine wisdom on the decisions that we need to make, not only for the residents of the city of McAlester, but for those that are visitors and those that come in and out of this city. Father, we just give you praise, glory, and honor. We thank you for all the essential staff that is working through this virus situation, the emergency responders, the people that are putting food on the shelves, and those that are serving us. And Father, I pray for each one who's assembled here and those that are hearing the sound of my voice. Lord, we'll just be mindful to give you the praise and to give you the glory in Jesus' holy and powerful name. Amen. Time for the pledge. Ready, set, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of
The United
and
States
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated.
As I said, we are trying some new technology tonight, so I got a couple of, things to make sure that people know. If we have any call-in or internet users, if you're going to address the council, if you could move to a quiet area with reduced background noise and mute your phones or microphones when speaking. And we don't have anyone attending in person. On citizens' comments, you will use the call-in number, and our staff will unmute your call and ask anyone to speak, at which time you'll be addressed or recognized. The same thing will happen with any public hearing and any agenda item. So we'll move to citizens' comments on non-agenda items. Residents may address the council regarding an item that is not listed on the agenda. Residents must provide their name and address, and council requests that comments be limited to 5 minutes. Do we have anyone online that is wishing to address us on a non-agenda item? Hearing none, we will move to the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. The agenda tonight consists of approval of minutes from March 10th, 2020, regular meeting of McAlester City Council. B, approval of minutes from March 17th, 2020, emergency meeting of McAlester City Council. C, approval of minutes from the March 23rd, 2020, emergency meeting of McAlester City Council. D, approval of minutes from the March 25th, 2020, emergency meeting of McAlester City Council. E, approval of claims for March 18th, 2020 through April 7th, 2020. F, consider and act upon receipt of the permit number SL 000612000101 from the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality for the construction of replacement of existing lift station with one lift station with two 200-gallon per minute pumps and all appurtenances to serve the UPS lift station improvements, Southside Airport area, Pittsburgh County, Oklahoma. G, consider and act upon a personal services agreement with David Wright for hay baling on the Stephen Taylor Industrial Park and Highway 31 west of Indian Nation Turnpike in the amount of $1,035. H, consider and act upon authorizing the mayor to sign the memorandum of agreement number 697 DCM-20-L-00083 between the City of McAlester and the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration. I, approval of minutes from the March 24th regular meeting of the McAlester City Council on Tuesday, March 24th, 2020. There was no quorum present in the council chambers. This statement is only to document for posterity the actions that were or were not taken at this time at the City of McAlester. Would anyone like any item removed from the consent agenda?
Mayor, do I need to identify myself for the people in our?
I would.
All right, this is Councilwoman Harrison, E, F, G, and H.
Are there any others? In that case, I would take a motion and a second to approve items A through D and I.
So moved.
Motion, Councilman Smith. I'll second it. Any discussion? Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. Councilwoman Harrison, I'm just going to let you go.
Oh, all right, thank you, and thank you so much, I appreciate everyone. Item number E, I would like someone to ask us the approval of the claims for March 18th, 2020 through April the 7th. Would that include the economic development funds that we're going to be discussing later, or is that separate?
This is action that we have already taken.
Oh, okay, excellent, all right. Moving to F, on this Department of Environmental Quality, is there an amount that's going with this, or is this just something that we are considering?
Councilwoman, this is just the permit itself.
Okay.
The bid was awarded, I believe, at the last council meeting.
Okay, I can't remember.
To the contractor.
Okay.
And I believe that was $140,000. I don't have that information in front of me.
Okay,
But this is just the permit from ODEQ
It's the
to
permit.
proceed.
oh, all right. Moving to G, I noticed that that we are accepting something on a high bid. Usually it's a low bid. Is it because this gentleman has insurance, is why we're going with a high bid?
No, we're going with the high bid because when we're selling a product, we want the highest bid possible,
Okay.
not the low bid. This is actual money that he's gonna be paying the city in
Okay.
order to bale the hay off of this property.
Oh, so we're gonna glean some income from what he's doing?
Yes, $1,035.
Oh, okay, thank you so much. And H, on this building, the aviation building, I guess that's the way to put it. Do we still have an airport advisory board? Is that the meeting that we have that? All right, now, is this building empty?
It's, the FAA keeps an office out there, don't they?
They do, and this is just a house cleaning item.
Oh, house cleaning, okay.
They have a small area in the back where they keep some equipment that they lease from us. It's a small portion of that.
Mm-hmm.
Out of that 10,000 square foot building, I think they lease like 200 square feet of it in the back.
Oh,
They have a
okay.
separate entrance.
Oh, okay, so we don't have to pay, wasn't there some renovation that was done on that building a while back? And if, no?
There has, I mean,
Oh.
but mostly maintenance. We've done some carpet work, we've done some painting, we've done some fixture work, we've done some painting outside.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a building that we need to continue to maintain until we can find somebody that wants to occupy the entire building.
Not for sale, but for rent or lease?
We'll look at both. We'll
Look
look
at
at
both.
for sale or for lease.
Oh, for lease, oh, okay, all right. Thank you so much.
Are there any other questions or comments on either item E, F, G, or H? Hearing none, I would take a motion and a second to approve items E through H.
I'll make a motion there.
Was that Councilman Brown?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Councilman, yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
if you would, everybody identify yourself when you speak. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No problem.
James Brown.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second, Councilwoman Harrison. Any discussion? Corge, call the roll, please.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yeah.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We will now move to a public hearing. All persons interested in any ordinance listed under scheduled business shall have an opportunity to be heard in accordance with Article 2, Section 212B of the City Charter. We have two tonight. The first is an ordinance of the City of McAlester, Oklahoma, amending ordinance number 2656, which established the budget for fiscal year 2019-2020, repealing all conflicting ordinances, providing for a severability clause, and declaring an emergency. The second is a public hearing on the proposed five-year capital improvement program for fiscal year 2020-2021 through 2024-2025 for the City of McAlester. Take a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Motion, Councilman Smith. I will second. Any discussion? Corge, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, we're now in a public hearing. If there's anyone online or by phone that would like to address the council on these issues, please make yourself known. Hearing none, I would take a motion and second to close the public hearing. Motion, Councilman Smith.
I'll second.
Second, Councilwoman Harrison. Any discussion? Corge, call the roll, please.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We are now on to agenda item number 1, discussion and possible discussion and possible action to adopt a McAlester area local economic disaster relief program. I think we did a lot of discussion on this last time. Is there, Councilman Pritchard, this was yours. Is there anything that you want to add?
No, I think I said it all last time. I guess I will say one thing. So if we adopt this program, the way I think this would run is we're going to give a directive to the city staff, specifically the economic development staff, and the staff are really going to be the ones tasked with implementing this program, and hopefully some pretty quick turnaround time. So that's kind of the idea, or at least my idea behind this program. And so that's all I have to say for now.
Well, I got a couple things on it. I think we're being premature on this. I did some research today, and the things that the federal government have put in place include the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Grant, which provides it provides money up front for people to do it, to stay in business. In fact, once you apply, you can get, within 3 days, you can get $10,000. And on top of that, we've also got, everybody is going to be getting $1,200 over the next couple days. I know it started today. Some people got it on that. To go along with that, there's the Paycheck Protection. That money can be borrowed to make payroll, to pay numerous things involving employees. And then there is the under the economic income disaster loans, you can pay for any fixed costs you have in your business, and it can be up to quite a bit of money. I think you can go up to 200,000, or no, I'm sorry, 2 million. And this is all things. Once you get it approved on the loan, you will get $25,000 within 5 days of the closing of the loan. So there, as far as getting the money out there quickly, I don't think we could get it out any quicker than the federal government can, and they've definitely got the ability to pay it, to pay this money much more than we do. And I think even though this is economic development money, we still have no idea where we're going to be in the future. And there's even a possibility that we would need to go back to the voters and ask if we could repurpose that money just to get by, because prior to even the oil and gas problem coming along, we were having to subsidize our bond payments because the sales tax wasn't covering it. And we were doing about $250,000, I believe, on that. So there's a reasonable chance that we're going to be having to subsidize that by multiple factors of that. And for us to use any resources now for programs that are already being covered by the federal government, not knowing where we're going to be and the potential that we may even have to, we may have to look at laying off employees to get through this. I can't in good conscience spend this money now. Is there any other discussion?
I've got a
Councilwoman
question.
Harrison?
Would you mind repeating the first, I don't know if you said loan or if it was a grant the federal was offering, please?
Well, the first is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Grant.
Economic.
And a borrower applying for the EIDL request an advance on the loan up to $10,000 from the Small Business Administration, and the SBA will distribute the money within 3 days of the request, and it's up to $10,000, and it can roll into the Paycheck Protection program as well, and so it's there. And the loan funds can be used as working capital to pay fixed debts, payroll accounts payable, other bills that could have been paid had the disaster not occurred. The fixed debt is a permanent debt or debt continuing for an extended period. It can be up to $2 million, and it's at 3.75% for businesses or 2.75% for nonprofits. Can be for 30 years. The actual decision on the loan takes within 2 to 3 weeks, but you get $10,000 within 3 days, and once it's closed, you get $20,000 or $25,000. So, and there's no personal guarantee on loans under $200,000, and it's based solely on credit score.
Okay. This is Councilwoman Harrison, for those that don't know who's on here. May I ask Councilman Pritchard about something, or even City Manager Stasiak, pursuant to the attachment on here on number 2, where it says loan program? A says $750,000 available, but it's my understanding it's not that, it's $700,000. Has something been changed or not? Or did I overlook something?
No, the available amount of funding in that account is $700,000.
So it is 700 and not 750, correct?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, it's written on here 750 on this attachment. And could someone explain to me and the public, also on this attachment, Mayor, to Mr. Councilman Pritchard, the 3E funds must be used on payroll as defined by the CARES Act. Is that something separate from the other things that we're talking about as far as the federal?
The CARES Act is the federal.
Okay. So would somebody would explain that?
Mayor, can I answer that question?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Councilman Pritchard. That is referencing the CARES Act that Congress passed a couple weeks ago. It's an acronym. I don't actually know what it stands for. But
Yes.
Within the CARES Act, payroll cost is defined. It's as part of the payroll protection program. So a lot of people that have been applying for those loans are probably familiar with this language. I actually, upon further consideration, I think we should consider a different use of funds than just the payroll cost. Since I drafted this and included it in the package, or in the packet, there's been quite a bit of discussion as people become more familiar with the rules that the Small Business Administration adopted to implement the Paycheck Protection Program. And I'm not sure that putting all the money into payroll cost is the most prudent course of action for us at this time.
Does that, were you still?
Oh,
okay.
I have another, this is Councilwoman Harrison. We can direct this to whomever. Looking at the attachment also on McAllister Small Business, let's look at, let's see where it was. Oh, the decision makers on this. Number 4C. Staff will score applications based on several factors, including length of business, operations, lost revenue, and need. What staff are we talking about? Because it seems like we're almost understaffed here at the city, with people retiring and all. So what staff are we talking about?
That's,
You know what?
Councilman Pritchard? Councilman Pritchard, are you still there?
Oh, yes, I am.
Yeah.
Would you like me to say that one?
Yeah, Councilwoman Harrison was asking which staff.
Yeah, sure. So I view this as being something that, this is ultimately a decision for probably Pete to make, but I would assume that the existing economic development staff, Mr. Ridenour, would handle this. I think potentially bringing on some sort of advisory committee to help him, something that he could organize himself or with the help of other staff makes a lot of sense. Similar communities or other communities that have done similar things have done that, where they've taken different people from the community and say, okay, well, we're going to help you put together this application. We're going to potentially help you screen applications and figure out, this is where we should be putting our resources. So we can do it different ways, but that's the way I envisioned 4C playing out. This is kind of this is a pretty big ask for the Economic Development Department of the city, because, we're talking about a relatively large amount of money. There could be a large number of applicants, and the document that I've included in the agenda packet here asks for some pretty quick turnaround times on getting applications available and then processing the application to present to the Development Authority and the City Council. So, this is a big ask. I don't know if it's possible from a staff, from a resourcing perspective, but I do know that, even though there are a considerable number of federal programs out there, that there are a lot of people in our community that haven't been able to take advantage of those, won't be able to take advantage of those potentially, and there's people that need additional help too. This is a very serious thing. So that's why, I put on here these requested dates, these turnaround dates to be so quick, is because it seems to me there's an urgent need in this community to help, to help our local businesses and organizations get through this economic difficulty.
This is
Mayor
Councilwoman
Brown,
Harrison.
this is Councilman Stevens.
Okay.
If there's no other questions, I've got a couple of comments and suggestions, if I may.
Councilwoman Harrison still has the floor, but I'll get you next.
Okay, I apologize.
Oh, that's all right, no problem. If I didn't say this, I want to thank Councilman Pritchard for your the time and effort that you put together on this and your concern. This is, I think I've got a couple of quick questions, and we can move on to the next council person. Who would be the grant writer? It said a possible loan or a grant. Who would be the one to write the grants? Who would be the preparer for that? Are we looking for city staff to do that also?
I think it actually at this point, I think it makes sense to do all of these as loans, to kind of, to preserve as much as possible the city's funds that are available, so we could, get money back and potentially use this money to do other economic development stuff in the future. But with that being said, the city staff is going to be responsible for sourcing the loan documents. I'm hopeful that there will be a lender in the community that may have some forms, some applications, some documents that we could use as templates for our own program. But yeah, the staff would be responsible for doing that.
Oh, okay. And, Mayor Brown, I think this is my last question, Councilman Pritchard. As a person who is over a business district, Ward 5, we had a pretty vibrant business activity until all this came about, this virus and economic problems. But what I'm concerned about is equal access to these funds, because there are some wards that have more businesses than others. And I would really be concerned about Ward 5 and our business over there. So how would funds be distributed in some kind of way where each ward would have access to funds for their businesses, or the business people would have access to funds? That would be a big concern I would have. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Stevens?
Yes, just a little information and a couple of comments and maybe possible suggestions for this program. So to my knowledge right now, a lot of the PPP funding they're getting approval on, but the banks are going ahead and dispersing funds even though they haven't received anything yet, just hoping that the SBA takes care of them and supports the decision being made. Because I know that they just came out today with guidance for independent contractors and those that are self-employed for the PPP loans. And then so far as the EIDL loan, I don't even think the SBA is processing those yet. And with that being a $10,000 grant, I think that's only $1,000 per employee. So, I mean, we're talking about large figures and large numbers, but we're also talking about across the state of the U.S. So it's not necessarily that there's all this free money and then it's all going to end up here. I mean, there's a lot of the people and businesses and things like that aren't able to get some of these funds. But even beyond that, they're competing with people right now that are getting it everywhere else, and we may not get it here. So I think this is a really good plan to kind of stopgap and help those businesses, the ones that aren't able to do anything. Hair salons, gyms, movie theaters, whatever we want to think about right now that they're essentially non-essential is what they've been defined as. They can't have any business. So I think it's a very good idea to do this, because the federal government, as much as I hope that they step in and do this, doesn't appear to be stepping in and doing anything quickly enough, even though this is a large program and I applaud them for doing it. It's good. But we can also turn around and help people here locally and restore those families and try to help them make it through this, because if we don't take care of these people and these families, they may not be here afterwards. So with that being said, a couple of comments and suggestions, maybe even possibly for this. So far as like the loan program, number 2, I think it could be a really good idea, and I think Councilman Pritchard already touched on this, to maybe partner with an existing bank here that can maybe even help administer the loans, can maybe work with Mr. Ridenour to supplement these. We could even do things within these loans where we do like a balloon note, where it's on a 15-year amortization or 10-year amortization like he has on here, with a balloon note due in 2 or 3 years, which essentially means that at that 2 or 3 year mark, 5-year mark, 7-year mark, that the whole note is due and payable. So then the business has to go and pay the city off, or we're able to reevaluate the note and work with the people and do some more things. So it allows revenue to come in. It allows us some flexibility, as well as a city to actually retain the funds and do that. And then another thing that we've done in the past is really, we could even do CDs. You know, we could do $250,000 CD and use that up, and then go on and see what the need is, and then do another $250,000 and use loans against that to, you know, get ourselves a more favorable interest rate and do those things. So there's lots of things I think we can do within this program that can make it very advantageous for the businesses and the families here to get them a needed injection right now and help as they're waiting for more help, or maybe they're even not able to capture the government funds because the federal funds are about to dry up. And then we could even, beyond that, also help our economic development retain some funds going forward, because we are in a stringent time. But I would also challenge this council to say, what else are we going to do with the money? It's been sitting there for years now, and we haven't done anything. I can't see a better use of these funds than to help businesses and families here right now get through probably one of the hardest times that they've ever experienced. We're not doing it for free. We're not just standing out on the corner giving money. We're asking them to come in and apply at a time when their businesses and families are in a lot of uncertainty, and then they're also going to end up paying interest, and they're still going to be here. These funds that we're putting in here, we're not sending them elsewhere. law of the community because they're going to be used to pay people's salaries. They're going to be used to pay rent. They're going to be used to pay bills, buy food, all the things that we always talk about with economic development. So I feel like this is a great program that we should really consider doing tonight. Thank you, Councilman Pritchard, for putting this together.
Mayor Brown, this is Joe Irvin. I have a couple of concerns I wanted to address with the council.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The first is obviously the application process would be pretty short under the time frame that we have here. Those funds, because we're going to be obligating those funds beyond the fiscal year, all those loan contracts have to be through the Economic Development Authority. And because they are public funds, we cannot delegate the administration of the funds. And so we can't ask a local bank to administer the loans because that's a non-delegable duty by law. And so the city of McAllister, through the Economic Development Authority, is going to have to administer all those loans. The other concern that I had is that this purports to extend the eligibility for applications to all of Pittsburgh County. We have done some economic development outside the city limits with regard to the base, but it's problematic for the city to loan money to businesses outside the city limits because you have to track the council or the Economic Development Authority have to determine an actual economic benefit to the city of McAllister for each of those loans. And so I think you're going to have plenty of applicants within the city limits. But if the council goes forward, I would encourage them to restrict eligibility to businesses within the city limits and to understand that we're going to have to administer those loans ourselves because we can't delegate that duty under the law. Further, all those funds have to be placed in the Economic Development Authority, and all the loans have to come out of that entity because it's a public trust and can contract beyond the fiscal year.
Any Councilman Smith?
Yeah, I think Cully and Zach's hearts are in the right place, but I think we have to use our heads here. There are so many things wrong with this that it's hard for me to cover them all. But number one, our priorities in the city are just like we talked about last time. We got water and sewer, we got police and fire, we got infrastructure. Those are the things that we're here to take care of. Number two, this purports to fill in a gap left by the federal government. Well, we don't know that there is a gap. Talking to my banker friends the last couple of days, they're starting to approve millions and millions of dollars in loans. They have so many applications, they can't take care of them. I think it would be a nightmare if our city employees were trying to administer something like this. They're not bankers, they trying to keep track of these things, and Maureen raises a great point. How do we determine who gets the loans? $700,000 is a drop in the bucket of what's going to be needed, and which the federal government purports that they will provide. We have hundreds of businesses within the city. If each business asks for $50,000, this goes to what, 14 or 15 people? So, trying to select who gets the loans is a mammoth problem, something that the city is not prepared to handle and wouldn't. It's a duplication of effort. The federal government has taken this on. They have printing presses. They roll them forever. We have trillions of dollars that are coming down the pipeline, not a few $100,000. Another critical element is the mayor just touched on, and Pete touched on last time. We have a financial problem in our city. Our sales tax revenues have dropped precipitously. We're looking at $3 to $3.5 million deficit over the next fiscal year. We really, this is not a time, if everything else was okay, to be tapping into these funds. And now our city attorney has raised some legal questions. But to me, this is something the federal government, the wheels are rolling, the checks are starting to come. They have billions upon billions of dollars to distribute. And, you know, we don't have the people to do this. We don't have a way to fairly distribute these things. And we have a tiny bit of money, which we probably are gonna need for other things in the future. So I think this is a terrible idea. I commend Cully and Zach for coming up with this, but it's something that the city really should not get involved with.
Are there any other questions?
Mayor, this is Councilwoman Harrison. I've got maybe two quick questions, I think. I would like to ask City Manager, Mr. Stasiak, has his staff been approached about this, and how would they feel about taking on additional financial responsibility and obligation? Would you have to hire someone? Do you have enough staffing? How do they feel about that, or has anyone said or been approached about it?
We really haven't approached anybody, but I can tell you we'd have to take on partners to get this done. And we would have to, like it was mentioned a few minutes ago, we would have to partner up with a bank. We are not loan specialists. We don't have the ability to go through all of those loan applications and be able to score them. We can certainly set up an application. I'm aware that the city of Tulsa has set up a loan program for small businesses. Their entire program for the city of Tulsa is $1.1 million. And I'm sure they've set up some kind of application or some type of process, but we would have to reach out to numerous organizations, find out how they're doing it, how they're scoring, how they're administrating those, and also be able to tie in with a banker or banks to help us through that process.
Mayor's okay to ask. So we're talking about local banks outside of McAllister?
Well, we would certainly try to
Try
partner
with our local ones
with
first.
a local bank, yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. And the other question, I think, Mayor, is it okay to ask? This city councilwoman again. Pursuant to these funds, this is coming out of the general funds. Can it be real? It would have to go to the public to see if, tell us how that would work. I would like to know that, please.
This money would be coming out of the Economic Development
Okay.
Fund.
And if it's not used, what happens? I mean,
It stays for economic development purposes for the future. Right now, that fund is utilized to fund positions here at the city. It funds our lobbyist in Washington, D.C. for the ammunition plant. It helps fund Pride McAlester Main Street. The Small Business Development Center, which you've seen numerous presentations here at the council, that's helping those small businesses out there, is funded through this account. So, yeah, there's a number of programs that would not go forward with the city.
oh, okay. So the other thing too, have any of the businesses prior to this crisis, ever applied for economic development funds? Have any of our business ever, that you know of, we'll say in the last year or recently even applied for any of these funds?
Not to my knowledge.
Not to your knowledge, okay. All right, thank you, that's it.
I go back to, I originally didn't see how it differed from CARES or the Paycheck Protection, but now, if it's not including payroll, then what does it cover? There's not, I mean, where would the money go? And where would, what if someone applied for this and applied for EIDL, Paycheck Protection, and all of that? Would they get money from both, or I mean, that and the fact that if we spend all of the money in the Economic Development Fund, that means we don't have money for an economic development director in the future. We don't have money for the people in DC that help us put together the Stampede to go up there and protect the jobs at the ammunition plant. It takes money from things that are vital to what we do now. as well. So that's why my position would be not to adopt.
Mayor, can I reply to that?
Yes.
This is Councilman Pritchard. So when I submitted this to the agenda packet, I was under the mistaken belief that we had about $1.1 million uncommitted funds in the economic development. So I made it, I requested $750,000, and the agenda, or the next agenda item, I think is actually $700,000. But apparently that is all of the available, or all of the uncommitted funds, or dollars in that fund. So what I would actually propose that we do is we commit enough money, the maximum amount of money that we can commit to this program, while reserving enough money to run the current economic development programs through next fiscal year. So from July of 2020 to June of 2021. So I'm not exactly sure what that number is, but I want to say it's more in the $500,000 range. But I definitely think we're going to need to. We should be prudent to reserve funds to do economic development for next year.
Mr. Stasiak?
Mayor, this is Councilman Cox.
Go ahead.
There seems to be several gaps in this proposal. I agree that it's commendable that we want to help our businesses, and I'm not sure that we shouldn't. But I think if we're going to ask city staff to manage this, wouldn't it be prudent to table it for a few days to allow the city manager and his staff to actually review it and come up with some kind of plan for us to review to see if it's even executable?
Who are you asking me?
I'm asking that of you or city manager or anyone.
Well, if you're asking me, obviously I don't think we should spend the money, any of that money. So I would be against tabling it.
Mayor, this is Councilman Pritchard again. I certainly have no problem doing that. I do think that it is important. I do think that the council should take some action tonight to, at a bare minimum, to direct the city staff to put together a proposal. But I also think we should go ahead and allocate money for that purpose. I mean, I think it's important to have as much of a plan as we can. But it's really important now to take action. I mean, this council took action, and I don't know how long ago, but weeks ago, to close down businesses throughout this community, and the governor did the same thing. People are in financial peril here, and so, I don't want to move recklessly, but there is an urgency to this situation. And so, I think whatever we do, if we do anything to move forward this, it's important that we move with the appropriate haste.
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
I'd like to move, this is Weldon, I'd like to make a motion that we not adopt this plan.
Is there a second? I will second that motion. Is there further discussion? Councilwoman
Okay,
Harrison.
I'd like to say something, Mayor. Councilman Pritchard.
Okay, I got Councilwoman Harrison first, then you.
Okay. Even if there were changes based upon what City Attorney Irvin said, it still would be the same thing, that we still would have face these same issues, no matter whether the staff is approached, through Mr. Stasiak talking to them. No matter what's done, we would still be back to the same point. There's some legal issues that are entangled in this, or possibly, correct? Or did I get that correct? City Attorney?
Mr. Irvin, did you get that question?
Yeah, this is Joe. There aren't any legal issues with the city spending economic development funds to protect existing businesses within the city limits. I was only pointing out that we have difficulty explaining that expenditure outside the city limits, and that we can't delegate the administration of the funds, the public funds, to another entity. But no, I didn't mean to suggest that it was illegal to spend economic development funds to protect existing businesses within the city.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you for that clarification.
Okay. Councilman Pritchard?
Yeah, so we have money available in this fund. The citizens of the city of McAlester specifically adopted a tax for economic development. This is a time of in anyone's lifetime, unprecedented economic peril. I can't think of a better use of local tax money than to support, to potentially augment federal efforts, but to support our local businesses and organizations that are struggling to make it day to day, week to week in an uncertain economic condition. This city council, and I think wisely so, made the decision to close many businesses throughout this community. It is only right now that with the available resources that we have, resources that cannot go to our core services. They cannot be spent on the police department, the fire department, the streets department, the water department. These are funds that were set aside by the citizens specifically for economic development. This council should take action tonight to mobilize those funds, to get those funds to the people that we, in our judgment, think need them the most. We are on the city council to make decisions. Some of these decisions may be difficult, but they are the ones that need to be made. There are people in this community that need $500,000. There are people in this community that if they could apply for a loan and have $5,000 help them make their next payroll so that their employees were, able to provide for their families. If there are people in this community that need the money that don't qualify for different federal programs, or maybe the federal programs don't leave them enough money to pay their rent, or to pay their utility bills, or to pay other fixed costs. There is a need in this community. We have funds specifically allocated for something like this. Not spending it at a time like this really runs the risk of actually making the local economic situation worse. We talk about, or I've heard people talk about declining sales tax revenue. Well, where does that sales tax revenue comes from? It comes from the local businesses, the retailers that are hurting right now. We need to support them. If we want to see that sales tax number come back, if we want to see it come back quickly, we should adopt a smart program that gets money where it's needed the most, so that those businesses can come back. If not, if we don't take action, when we have this money available that we can't use on something else, I really feel like this council is being rather reckless. Thank you.
Any other further discussion? Councilman Harrison?
All right, this is Councilwoman Harrison. I've got one other quick thing. When it comes to family and friends who have businesses here in town or in the area who would apply for this, there would be a certain amount of awkwardness for the city staff to go through this. Would they be taking strictly applications? There's a certain amount of awkwardness, I would think, that would go into this, and I don't know if they would feel comfortable about that or not, seeing somebody's family member or friend, or I don't happen to have a business, but I would imagine there would be a certain amount of awkwardness on that, or I could be wrong. But, and then the other thing too, when is the governor's mandate for all this to be over? Is that April the 30th?
That's
we
what he
revisit?
set the date to.
All right. Is there any way that we could revisit that if the motion, but you put in a motion for that though?
Going to be, I'll be on a conference call with the governor tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
And so I can, if there's any information that comes out of it related to this, I can get it to you.
Oh, okay. Is it okay that city manager answer that question? Would he think that his staff would feel uncomfortable and awkward seeing that any of our family, friends, if we have the same last name, same whatever name, would there be a certain amount of, you think they would be comfortable with that? And I think that might be it.
I I think it could all be very awkward, but there's a level of professionalism that has to be taken on here.
Right,
And you're not choosing friends and neighbors, you're
No.
choosing programs.
right.
And that's what we have to focus on.
Oh, okay, that's what I was just wondering. All right, thank you. Thank you again
Yeah.
for opportunity to say that.
Councilman Smith?
And again, this amount of money is a drop in the bucket as to the needs of our businesses in this town. Giving out $700,000 is not gonna save our businesses. The federal government's program hopefully will do that. This is something that, and then, picking and choosing who the winners and losers within the city staff, as Maureen points out, this is a very difficult job. So again, I think this is a program that is rife with all kinds of problems, won't really solve the problem. And so again, I would encourage us to turn this proposal down.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
can you repeat what motion Councilman Smith made?
yes. It is I'm gonna say it and have him confirm it. It's a motion to not take action on this program,
To not adopt it.
to not adopt this program.
So if we vote in favor of what he's saying, then we're voting to not adopt it, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
One last time, any further discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes,
Pritchard,
No.
Stevens,
No.
Cox,
Yeah.
Brown,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to
Unreal.
agenda item number 2, consider and act upon an ordinance amending ordinance number 2656, which established the budget for fiscal year 2019-2020, repealing all conflicting ordinances, providing for severability clause, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Stasiak.
Mayor, members of the council, tonight we have a couple of budget amendments for you. First budget amendment is Exhibit A1. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, this council voted to move $500,000 out of the emergency fund into the daily operations of the city. I'd like to specify that none of this money has been touched. All we're doing is moving it to the general fund as we need it in the future. But to this date, none of this has been touched. And so this is to move that money to the general fund. Exhibit A2, this is, here again, it's just the increase in the interdepartmental pay contingency, putting the money in that interdepartmental account for the emergency. Item number 3 was the transfer of $700,000 for the Economic Development Relief Program to fund local businesses. And the last agenda item did not pass, so I don't know if we need Exhibit A3. Mayor, that's the 3 exhibits.
Are there any questions or comments? Take a motion and a second to approve.
So move.
Motion, Councilman Smith. I will second. Any further discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Is this to approve exhibits A1 and A2?
Considering it's not an ordinance amend, it's approving the ordinance amending the budget.
Okay, but that includes the
The
exhibit
3
A3.
exhibits. The 3 exhibits are the 2 for the $500,000 for the emergency fund, and exhibit number 3 is the $700,000 for the disaster relief fund.
Yeah, so it'd be 1 and 2.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Pritchard,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the motion. What's the motion?
It's the motion is to approve the budget amendment for items 1 and 2. in the package?
No.
Stevens,
Vice Mayor Stevens, are you there?
Yes, was my name called?
Yes, yes.
Oh, I apologize. No.
Cox,
Yeah.
Could you repeat that? Councilman Cox, could you repeat that?
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. This has an emergency clause with it, so I take a motion and second. Motion, Councilman Smith. I will second. Any discussion on the emergency? Corge, you call the roll, please.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Stevens, Councilman Stevens,
Oh, I apologize. No.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to agenda item number 3, discussion and possible action to award any city employee an additional 80 hours of sick leave should he or she contract the COVID-19 virus or be quarantined due to contact with someone who has been diagnosed positive for the virus. And this is mine, and it's the governor put this out and was asked cities to follow suit with it. And what it does is if one of our people that we have working actually contracts the virus or is in contact with someone that causes them to be put into a quarantine, especially through working for us, that they aren't harmed by losing their sick leave, that this would give them the 80 additional hours. It's very similar to the I think it's the Families First Coronavirus Response Act that was passed by the federal government as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any. Councilwoman Harrison.
Okay. This is Councilwoman Harrison. Would this be applied to part-time employees also?
Do we have any part-time employees working still?
We do not at this time.
And what about retirees, people that may have, usually when people get ready to retire, they go ahead and they use up all their leave. If they used it up, would they still be able to receive this, or would they?
The only way that they would get this would be if they were working and they either contracted the virus or were ordered into quarantine because they'd been in contact with someone who had the virus.
Okay.
So if they were retired, they obviously wouldn't need any sick leave.
No, what I'm talking about, say a person has 2 weeks and they're getting ready to retire,
Yeah.
and they contract this or been in, been exposed to it,
Yeah.
and they've already used up their leave,
If a medical
or
professional
they've donated it, because sometimes
yeah,
a different,
they would get this.
they still would,
Yeah,
they still wouldn't get it.
If a medical professional says that you need to be quarantined because of the virus while working, this is what this would apply.
Oh, okay, and then the other thing too is, if that person, employee, has used up his or her leave, I'm talking about sick leave or whatever leave, and they've contracted this, and 80 hours have been donated to them for this, do they still, and say the retirement time is up, and this this 80 hours are still on the books, do they still get that? Will they get paid for that, or will they just lose that after they retire?
Would they get?
Do you know what I mean?
Would they get credit for 80 hours after they retire? No.
Okay.
You have to be working.
Oh, they'd have to be working,
Yes.
okay, all right. Thank you.
Councilwoman, I think the confusion is
Yeah.
nobody gets this 80 hours unless you contract it.
Right, well, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If somebody is getting ready to leave and they find out, oops, they've got it, and they've got 2 weeks left on their job, will they still get this? Or if they're part-time, or, you know, I was just trying to see. All right, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
This is Councilman Pritchard. I have a question.
Okay. Go ahead.
How much do we expect this to cost?
Could you repeat that? You broke up.
How much do we expect this will cost the city of McAlester?
It's not possible to know because we don't know how many people will actually get the virus.
Well, where, if it does cost the city of McAlester something, where will the funding come from?
It would come out of payroll, out of the general fund.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, and like I said, since it's mine, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilman Smith. Any further discussion? Corr, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard, Councilman Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We will move on to agenda item number 4, City of McAlester financial update. Mr. Stasiak.
Mayor, members of the council, this is going to be, it's going to be somewhat difficult to explain all of this to you without a lot of slides and a lot of information in front of you, but I'm going to try and give you kind of a picture of where we're at today and what that picture looks like in the upcoming year as we plan for budgeting 2020, 2021. Through March of this year, with 75% of the year accounted for, we're under about 5% on our revenues in the general fund. And the good news is we're under about 3.2% on expenditures. That's going to change dramatically as we move forward. Keep in mind, this is through March 31st, so we only have about 2 weeks of the city shutdown in any of these numbers. In the MPWA, we are about 5.9% under budget for revenue and about 6.8% under budget on expenditures. So what I want to talk about a little bit is what we're trying to do as we predict the future going forward, which is a very difficult thing to do because realistically the only information we have at the city, real-time information, is through March the 15th. The last sales tax that we received was for the period February 16th through March the 15th. And March 15th is about the time everything got shut down. But on March the 15th, that sales tax return was under budget 10.3%. So that's very indicative of what we are seeing with the oil and gas downfall. The prior month, we were down 15.8%, and the month before that, we were 13.6% under budget. So we've seen a significant pattern based on the oil and gas industry. So what we've been doing now is sitting down and looking at our sales tax that is given to the city on a monthly basis. And keep in mind, there are about 4,000 organizations or companies that disperse some form of sales tax to the city on a monthly basis. Now, some of these are $1 from an online sale somewhere all the way up to the Lowe's and the Walmarts, Walgreens, some of the larger organizations, Chili's, those type of deals. So what we did is we categorized all the hotels, we categorized all of the restaurants, and we took the top 25 retailers and looked at what is happening currently with those organizations. And we felt confident in looking at the hotels and saying they're at about 25% occupancy of what they were prior to this pandemic. We've looked at all the restaurants and taken into account those that are doing curbside delivery and also online sales. And then we looked at the top 25 or top 35 retailers and looked at specifically what Walmart is doing differently. I mean, we anticipate Walmart's grocery sales are going to be up because of people hoarding things, but the other side of it is the retail side of it is probably down because people aren't in there shopping, buying toys, ammunition, sporting goods, TVs, those type of things. So what we came up with is we estimated that restaurants are going to be at about 35% of what their sales were prior to the pandemic, and retail, we just used a number of 50%. Based on that information and looking in that crystal ball, because at this point it is nothing more than a crystal ball, we estimate the MPWA and the general fund for next year is going to have a deficit of $3,138,000,000. $3,138,000,000, $3.138 million. This does not include any of the increase in our bond debt, those type of things. So this number is going to grow probably somewhere in the range of $3.5 million for the upcoming budget. So that's $3.5 million that we have less money to operate this city moving forward. As you can imagine, $3.5 million is not easy to come by. And when we look at the city, the bulk of all of our expenditures, the large portion of our expenditures is payroll and benefits associated with that. So the biggest impact is to that payroll and the benefits in our employees. So at the last council meeting, the council heard our proposal to offer an early retirement program to our employees that felt like they could retire and move on from the city. These are people that some of them we have one employee that's got 48 years with the city that's retiring, another employee that has 42 years, and we have employees all the way down to 3, 4, or 5 years that are retiring from the city. So in total, we have 13 employees that have signed up for that early retirement. If you tie that to the vacant positions that we currently have, we have 8 vacant positions. So that's a total of 21 employees right there. So as I explained earlier, really the only areas that we can look at are salary and benefits. Materials and supplies have been cut year after year after year, and they're probably about as low as they can get, but we're still going to have to make a cut based on the number of personnel. But based on that, it is our proposal and our goal to move forward with an additional 32 furloughs for the city. This means that we will be less 53 employees moving forward. The reason we want to furlough everybody is because they still remain employees of the city. They will still be on a callback. They're eligible for state unemployment, which is approximately 60% of their salary. They're also eligible for the federal money, which is an additional $600 a week on top of the state. So based on that, the bulk of our employees will be kept whole, Mayor.
Yeah, you forgot to mention they'll be keeping their insurance.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
So on a pay basis, the bulk of our employees will be kept whole. In addition to that, because they're on furlough, the city will continue to pay for their health, dental, vision, long-term disability, and life insurance premiums. until they are either called back or they go on to some other employment. In addition to the 53 employees that we will not have in the near future, we will not have any part-time employees either. From time to time at the city, we have as many as 79 part-time positions, and we will only be maintaining a couple of those going forward. I've spoken in the past. These are pretty daunting times for the city. I've never in my life seen any type of numbers like this. What I've explained in the past is we will be focusing on the core elements of the city, that is police, fire, streets, water, and sewer. And the areas that are at risk going forward are our parks, recreation, cemetery, swimming pools, expo, tourism, economic development, nutrition, and our Stipe Center. So as we move forward with reducing these budgets and planning for the future, these numbers can change pretty dramatically based on information as we start gathering it. But we will not have any information on sales tax for about another 12 to 14 more days. And at that point, we'll only have some preliminary information that will show what's going on with the shutdown of our city and the pandemic that we are currently under. So with that said, we are moving forward with $3.5 million worth of cuts from the city, and we are going to be moving forward to balance this budget. Our intent, Mayor, is to have a preliminary budget for this council at the end of this month at the next council meeting on the 28th. And that will depict all of the additional cuts, because not only is it personnel and benefits, there are also a number of other items that we are also looking at in order to balance this budget moving forward. That's all I have at this time, and I'll take any questions that anybody has.
Any questions or comments?
Of course,
Councilwoman
I've
Harris.
got it.
Councilman Pritchard, I have a
This
question.
is, I think he was first.
Okay, go ahead, Councilman Pritchard.
City managers, the $3 million, is that from the combined MPWA city budget?
That $3.5 million is citywide. It is the MPWA, the general fund, all other revenues. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Harrison.
Oh, okay. You see on my notes, I've got a question about capital outlay, the $50,000. Has that been budgeted to anything? It was on an email that you sent us. So could you tell us about that? It didn't seem like it was put in any budget, and I don't know if that was part of the $50,000 that we talked about under Councilman Pritchard's proposal. You know, it was originally, he had on there $750,000, and I noticed that $50,000 didn't look like it was allocated. Could you tell us about that, please?
You're absolutely correct. That is $50,000 that was set into that account for a future project that had not been named.
Yes.
If we had a project that we needed some funding for, then we would have come to the council and asked for the authorization for that expenditure, letting you know that that $50,000 was sitting there to be used.
So, is it okay to ask him that? So what happens to the $50,000? It stays in the general fund and it's used for like an emergency or?
It
tell
does
us.
not. It
Oh, what
stays in the
It
Economic
stays-
Development Fund.
Oh, okay.
All of those dollars that you're talking about are in the Economic Development Fund.
Okay, right, I remember seeing that in that.
Yes.
So that's part of that.
Yes.
And I know this might be a wild question, but I'll ask you anyway. Has any of the employees requested even that their salary be reduced so that they could stay?
They have
Anybody?
not.
No one's volunteered to say they'll take a salary reduction so that they could stay gainfully employed?
No, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Stevens, if I may, please.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Mr. Stasiak, when we're talking about budget shortfalls and things like that, and we're looking into this next year, I saw recently in the paper today about the 14th Street TIF, and that he still believes that's a go. Is that correct?
Yeah, Councilman, I was gonna give that information during my city manager's report, but I'll read the actual email that, and the quote from Mr. Collins that we received today. And he said, "We're about 3 weeks away from our building plans being finished. The site contractor will be back on site this week. All tenants are still going forward. Considering the state of affairs, we can say on this project, everything is still solid." And that is from Mr. Burt Collins, the owner of Burt Collins Development.
Okay.
Also received.
My question is, and I know that we talked a lot about this with the projected income of that project coming into the community, and then we also talked somewhat of cannibalization, even though we kind of shoved that part to the side. With the downfall in our budget now, and then the possible closure of several of our businesses probably in this area at some point, since we've taken no action to help them, do you feel that cannibalization could really cause us some issues there?
I do not. I think this is all new money being spent from outside of our community and drawing people into our community from the outlying areas.
So you don't believe that anybody in this community will shop there instead?
Sure they will.
You don't think that'll have an impact on our budget still?
I do not. I think that this shopping center is going to draw all the people into our community that have been going to all the other communities to do their shopping. And I think we're going to see a dramatic increase in our sales tax.
Okay, thank you.
And anyone else? Any other questions, comments? In that case, we will move to new business. Any matter not known or which could not have been reasonably foreseen prior to the time of posting the agenda in accordance with Section 311.9, Title 25 Oklahoma State Statutes. Do we have any new business?
I do not, Mayor.
In that case, we will go to the city manager's report.
The only other thing that I wanted to add was right before I came down to this meeting tonight, I did get an email from the Collins organization stating that their plans were completed and they were going to be setting up a meeting to be moving forward on approval of their plans. So things are moving very quickly, and this thing is coming together as it should. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Remarks and inquiries by council. Councilman Smith.
Well, I just wanted to thank some people. I can't thank everybody, but our medical personnel are doing a great job. We got our city employees who are keeping our city services running. Got to thank them. I want to thank all the truckers out there who are on the road bringing us everything we need. All the clerks and stockers in our grocery stores and pharmacies that are keeping essential supplies there for us. You know, we got a lot of people who are working through this thing, and I want to thank all of them. I also wanted to mention, you know, if you haven't had a chance to drive on our roundabout, you ought to go down and see it. It's a thing of beauty. The street on Washington from 5th to 6th is under construction, but you can take a spin around the roundabout, and it's really a nice job. I have to commend Pete and his people and Mike McGowan for you know, putting the money forward for that, and so it's a really nice feature of our community. You ought to go see it.
Councilwoman Harrison.
Thank you for this opportunity to say something. First of all, I would like to reiterate what Councilman Smith has said. I appreciate all the people that are working in the essential, what they call essential businesses, and because it's not been easy. A special shout out to Ward 5 to keep your head up. It's going to be all right. I would like to say commend Councilman Pritchard and Councilman Stevens. Even though the vote didn't go your way, your heart was in it, from what I remember, Mrs. Laddie came, and Main Street and the Chamber of Commerce, those are organizations that are open to have people come and assist them too, if I got that right. Am I correct on that, gentlemen? And so we'll just move forward and keep hoping for the best, and thank you so much.
Vice Mayor Stevens?
Mr. Stasiak and the rest of the city employees, thank you all so much for what you are doing right now, and the people that are working so hard to keep our city running and taking care of people like Sheriff Blessings right now and all they feed and do, and so many others. But to be clear, that wasn't my agenda item tonight. That was Councilman Pritchard's, and he came up with a wonderful plan to help a lot of the businesses in our area, or at least try to. And to those business owners and families that are sitting there watching us, I'm really sorry that we couldn't do more. And I'm very disappointed, honestly, kind of disgusted. And I hope as this goes on that we can do. So I'm sorry. Thank y'all.
Councilman Cox?
Mayor, City Manager, I just want to thank the employees at McAllister for doing all that they can during this time, especially our firefighter and the police and the EMTs who are having to answer the calls and put themselves in the essential services. I think there are still opportunities for us to come together and look at ways to help the community. We just gotta we gotta find plans that everybody can agree to so that we can go forward with a plan of action. I'll be talking to Pete about some of those items later in the week. That's all I have.
Councilman Brown?
Yes, sir. I want to commend Councilman Pritchard, Steve. I know they're got a lot of great ideas, and I hope we can come back later and implement some of those to help the people in the community. I know they work hard, and we all work hard. And I also want to compliment the the workers I've seen since I've been ill myself. The firefighters, doctors, I mean, everybody's really working hard out here. And I want to thank them and the people who bring food. And I really never thought about all this till this happened. And boy, it's a rude awakening, I mean. And I want to thank the city employees. I know they do all the time. And I appreciate what they do, appreciate what the city manager and all the staff does. So thank you guys so much, and we hope we can get something worked out here, because I really want to help the people here as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Pritchard?
Yes. A few minutes ago, Councilwoman Harrison said that the votes didn't go my way tonight, and she's wrong.
Oh,
The votes didn't go the way of the people of McAllister tonight. This city council is going to leave knowing that we have hundreds of thousands of dollars in a fund that we do not have the courage to appropriate for the many small businesses and organizations in our community that need help right now. I have done all that I can do. My plea is now with those people, with those business owners, with those nonprofit organizations, to let the rest of this city council know that you need help. Their numbers are all available at cityofmcallister.com. Give them a call. Send them an email. Let them know that you are a person that is trying to pay your rent. You're trying to pay your employees. You're trying to pay your employees' health insurance, potentially. You're trying to pay your bills. Let them know. Let the 5 members of the city council who tonight turned their nose up at you, turned their back on you, let them know that you need their help. I can't help you anymore. You need to talk to your city council members. Thank you.
All right, I just have a couple of things. First of all, I would say, because a vote doesn't go a certain way doesn't mean you're voting against people. It means you're voting in my personal perspective, economic prudence. But I want to
Can
thank.
you speak into the mic, Mr. Mayor? I can barely hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I want to reiterate what everyone else has said about thanking all of the people that are working. I want to thank all the people that are social distancing and staying home as much as possible, because we've been at this for a while, and it's starting to get people antsy, and you're starting to see people thinking that this isn't as serious as everybody's making it out to be. And let me tell you, it is without a doubt as serious as that. There's been over 600,000 cases in the country, and it still has not reached the peak. And in Oklahoma, we're not even expected to reach the peak until somewhere between April 21st and April 24th. And when we reach the peak, that doesn't mean it stops and just falls off a cliff. It's going to, there's going to be a significant period of time after you reach the peak before you get down to a level that is safe for everyone. And so I want to thank the people that have been doing it. I want to encourage anybody that hasn't been doing it and doesn't think that it's going to affect them to take into account the people that they come in contact with, their families, their loved ones, my family, people in general, because you can do what you want with yourself, but don't put other people in danger. So please continue to social distance and stay home as much as possible. And with that, we will recess the council meeting, and I would take a motion to convene as Mcallister Airport Authority. Motion to include approval of minutes from the March 25th, 2020 emergency meeting of the Mcallister Airport Authority. Confirm action taken on City Council Agenda Item E, H, 2, and to adjourn. Motion, Councilman Smith. Second, Councilwoman Harrison. Any discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Brown,
Councilman Brown?
Yes.
Pritchard,
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Councilman Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. I now take a motion to convene as Mcallister Public Works Authority. Motion to include approval of minutes from March 25th, 2020 emergency meeting of the Mcallister Public Works Authority. Confirm action taken on City Council Agenda Item E, F, 2, and to adjourn. Oh, sorry. Who moved out over the phone?
Oh, I'm sorry, James Brown. So
Okay. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Brown,
yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. The next agenda item is an executive session. Vice Mayor Stevens, you put this on. Are you willing to pull this item because it doesn't fit within the Open Meeting Act?
My understanding from speaking to you is that you and the city attorney decided this was illegal, so I just thought that we should pull it then.
Okay. In that case, without objection, we'll pull it, and we'll reconvene into open session, and I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion, Councilman Smith, second, Councilwoman Harrison. Any discussion? Cora, would you call the roll?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and we're adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
James, see ya.
Thank
See
you.
you, James.